This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning in to the program. It is Friday, August the 22nd. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's producing the Come On With It edition of the show. So, if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So we're just about at the end of the Canada Summer Games. Here's some pretty good reviews from some of the visiting athletes and their parents. So that's the good news. Last weekend, of course, then to get a chance to maybe get another medal or two. Maybe it comes in softball. 1-1 yesterday in the action. Dave Williams tells me he was at the soccer game yesterday. A 1-1 draw with Alberta. Millie Janes at it again, scored our goal. We're at sitting tied at the top of Group D with Alberta after that draw last night, so you never know. One of the athletes I was told to keep an eye on is local Sawyer LeBlanc. He's participating in athletics in the 1,500-meter race. In the preliminary heats, he had the quickest time, 53 seconds flat. So he's in the final tonight, and you never know with the quickest time going in, maybe the quickest time coming out. So good luck to Sawyer and all hands participating in every sport throughout the rest of the Canada Summer Games. All right, just quickly, as a big tennis fan, 2025 looked like it was going to be a pretty forgettable year. Now, early in the season, Felix Auger-Aliassime won a couple of ATP 250 tournaments. Not huge, big deal. Shapovalov got an ATP 500 level title in Dallas earlier in the year. Won a 250 in Mexico. Gabriel Diallo, who's a real up-and-coming player, he won an ATP 250 as well in the Netherlands. Leila Fernandez won a 500 event. And then along comes Vicky Mboko. Came into the year ranked 350th in the world. Came into the Canadian Open ranked 88th in the world and wins. Wow. Now she's 24th going into the U.S. Open. She became the youngest woman since Serena Williams in 1999 to knock off 4 Grand Slam champions on the road to a victory. So on the road to a championship. So absolutely brilliant. So she goes in. She gets seeded actually at the U.S. Open, which is beginning this weekend. So she gets the 22nd seed, and her first round match is against a former Wimbledon champion, 2-time Grand Slam champion, former number 1 Czech veteran Barbara Krejcikova. So not an easy draw off the top, but anyway, been a decent season for tennis. There is going to be a wildfire briefing today after a couple of days of no presser from the provincial government, so we're going to carry it live at 10:15. People have a lot of questions, and I field a lot of them, and I try to get the answers, but I don't have them all. So we know some good news. The Paddy's Pond fire is under control. The opportunity to divert resources to the massive out-of-control fire, the Kingston fire, as they say. The Mart Lake fire has been on hold, or has been held, pardon me. So good news on that front. Just a couple of things. So the big questions are, you know, not only the clean up and how we talk about rebuilding and where we rebuild and how that's going to work, but even just what's next for those who have been evacuated. So some of the buildings that are being used are going to be used as schools, like Carbonear Academy, for instance. So for folks who are anxiously awaiting some sort of update, because it's going to be a while before, especially the Conception Bay North fire remnants get cleaned up, and of course all the fires. But for all the communities that have been decimated by the Kingston fire, the what next question is a very good one. So hopefully there's some information coming on that front. The federal government, there is a pot of money known as the Disaster Relief Fund. The province will be applying for support. And the federal government has now announced they're going to match donations to the Canadian Red Cross, which is a good thing, obviously. In addition to, and we can talk anything wildfire if you're so inclined, and we can talk about anything, as you know, in this program. So, you know, we talked about Sunnyside, and we spoke to the mayor a couple of days ago about the fact that their reservoir ran dry, bone dry. Now there is indeed water, but a state of emergency persists and a boil order advisory and all the rest of it. Bonavista Vista now experiencing extremely low water levels. Apparently the water levels in their reservoirs are just like a couple of feet above the intake pipe. So lowest levels in a long time. So they've got some serious restrictions in place. You know, I talk about no washing your vehicle, no water in the lawn. But even getting down to the nitty-gritty of people are being asked to turn off the tap while you brush your teeth. Things like that. Grab a quick shower as opposed to a bath. Don't fill up the swimming pool in the backyard. Those types of things. So We haven't talked a whole lot, and probably we should have focused in a bit more on water this year. Many communities have water conservation orders in place. Then you wonder what these hot, dry conditions have meant to the province's farmers. Now, certain parts of the province have had a little bit of drizzle during that wicked hot stretch we had. But if you're a farmer and you want to tell us what you're seeing on your property, it'd be helpful to know, because obviously it must be a terrible season. Got off to a pretty good start, but persistent hot, dry temperatures can't have been good. I mean, even something as fundamental as the second go at the hay. Many farmers won't get it. And some may indeed have a reduced opportunity. Like I spoke to a farmer, our good friend Billy Gregory, this morning. Out around his area, they're going at the second round of hay, and last year would have got 80 bales, and this year maybe 40. So it's a problem. And if you want to take it on, we can do exactly that. All right. Sticking with the water, this time on the water. So we've been asking this question of the federal government as to what they may indeed do with the recreational food fishery, given the fact that people have been displaced, people fighting the fires, and other complications, is that we probably needed another couple of weekends added, and they're doing it. All right. So 2 new weekends, from Saturday the 6th of September to Monday the 8th, and Saturday the 13th to Monday the 15th. Still just the Saturday, Sunday, Monday affair. These 2 additional weekends are helpful for those who'd like to get out, given the fact that this weekend's probably going to be terrible for areas that are impacted by the remnants of Hurricane Erin and the riptides and the waves. And of course, people need to make good decisions and be safe when they're thinking about going out on boat. But it still is not going to quell or quash the fury that many people have about what they call and what people call, and I agree, some pretty serious restrictions associated with the recreational food fishery. But 2 additional weeks have been added. I don't think that brings an end to the conversation, but there you go. All right. This is a story that's getting plenty of national attention. Politicians of all stripes chiming in on a case being, I guess, now beginning in Ontario. And it's about Canada's self-defense laws. All right. It's a complicated matter, and we've had this conversation about what you can and cannot do to protect yourself, your family, and your property in Canada. So this involves an intruder, a home invasion. In the middle of the night, someone is awoken because there's someone in their home, in their residence. I think it's an apartment, but anyway. The person whose home was invaded is now being charged. Aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. Okay. Where do we start here? We do know that the laws are pretty clear here. You can indeed fight back with a reasonable amount of force commensurate with the force that you're receiving. They talk about the word, what is reasonable. Now, this specific case, we can't get too far into it because we don't have all the details. We don't know what weapons may have been brandished by the home intruder and or the person protecting themselves and or their property, and that's important. Nor do we know if they knew each other, which could be a complicating factor here. But they hang their hat on what's reasonable. That's a difficult word to try to decipher or to define when we talk about it like this. And like I mentioned on the morning show, if someone comes into my home in the middle of the day and I'm awake and aware, that's one set of circumstances. If you're awoken from your slumber and you're caught off guard and you don't know what the status is of, say, for instance, your children who are in other rooms, then what does constitute reasonable? You know, we are told, once you have someone subdued, you can't continue to hit them with the bat or your fist or the knife or whatever you might have on hand. But when you're scared, fear really does change the definition of what's reasonable or not. Canadians should absolutely have the right to defend themselves, to defend their family, to protect their property. There's not going to be an instance, I hope anyway, where we go all the way down the path like in some of the United States where they talk about stand your ground. In some states you have the right to drop someone dead with your firearm if they enter your house, which is pretty wild. But this case is drawing a lot of conversation, and understandably so. Now, politicians are quick to hop in on it. We've heard from Mr. Poilievre, we heard from Doug Ford, we heard from Danielle Smith, all saying very similar things. But we really do need to have a careful consideration and conversation about the veracity of this particular charge when we know more details, and simply the concept of defending yourself. You hear a lot of people say things like, they leave in a bag and all that. Look, the vast majority of people, the reality is, they've never clenched their fist in anger and hit anybody, nor have they been punched in the face. So what we may or may not do when confronted with someone like a home invader remains to be seen. Fear is real. The toughest amongst us, if caught off guard in the middle of the night, of course you're going to be afraid, especially if the kids are in another room and those types of complicated factors. But it's getting a ton of attention, and I completely understand why. And so we can open up that conversation if you're so inclined, because I don't know if we can refer to this case as potentially precedent setting, but it's drawing a lot of attention, and we're happy to talk about it if you like this morning. And what's the likelihood it has something to do with either a personal beef or drugs? Who knows? We'll see. This is a warning coming from the RCMP, and this is about the toxicity and or the purity of cocaine that they're finding on the streets based on most recent seizures. Okay. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner is clear that cocaine is the most prevalent drug responsible for toxicity deaths within the province. We talk about fentanyl and meth and ecstasy and amphetamines and benzos and morphine and hydromorphone and oxycodone, but it's the cocaine. Not that long ago, the purity on the street would be like 15 to 20%. Now they're finding it with an average purity between 90 and 95%. And of course, it can absolutely drop you dead. So to break down some of the numbers about what deaths were accidental and what have you. Between 2023 and 2024, 87% of the 158 toxicity deaths were accidental. 49% of those deaths involved cocaine alone, while 18% involved the other aforementioned drugs. So people have to be aware there's a long way between 15% and 90% impurity, and how dangerous it can be. And then someone in an email said, well, maybe you should all carry naloxone kits. Naloxone won't work. It's only for an opioid overdose or the possibility of an overdose. So for those out there using, whether you're addicted to it or you're the weekend warrior, things have changed. So put out that warning as brought forward by the RCMP just for your information. And there's also something called the Good Samaritan Law. If someone you are with is experiencing an overdose, you can call for help. And even if you're holding, you will not be charged. So that's pretty wild stuff coming from the RCMP. And to broaden that conversation into what I think is a growing chorus about more detox, reducing time frame between detox and rehabilitation, and then ongoing supports. Because the country's in a crisis here. Not only with the overdoses, but just the amount of drugs being used and consumed. So you want to take it on. It's pretty scary stuff, but we should talk about it. I've seen the news that, we talk about the economic update we've had and the deficit and the debt and the borrowing and what have you, and the need to rein in spending. Of course, 42% of the budget in 2025 allocated for healthcare. Far and away the largest, the highest line item. So Newfoundland Labrador Health Service is talking about a comprehensive review of operations. They've been at it for a while, and now it's time to conclude it. So they're pretty close to implementing all of the 15 recommendations coming from the Auditor General, and that's a good thing. Then there's some fairly vague things regarding, money spent on travel nurses. It'd be nice to have an updated number there. Then one thing that's important, and a very difficult conversation to broach, but I suppose I'm going to take it and do it anyway. It's what they talk about, the amount of unnecessary tests. Okay, where do you even start with this one? So for doctors or nurse practitioners or whoever who have the authority to order these diagnostic tests, I'm sure when you have scared, worried patients and their families, and they want to be signed up for one test or another, say an MRI, even if the doctor, in his or her mind, based on their training and what the science says, it's easy enough to just order the test. But if it's completely unnecessary, based on the actual medical guidelines, then we've just got to stop doing it. I mean, how many people out there are on a wait list for one diagnostic or another that they really need it, but some people ahead of them in the queue really don't? So, and add to it the associated cost with all these tests. So they've been kind of noodling around the edges of this for quite a long time. And yes, it's probably going to result in some pretty difficult, if not testy conversations in a doctor's office when the doctor says, no, you really don't need that test. And so consequently, we're not going to order that test. Because we just lean in on those things, right? You think, well, if there's something wrong and I need to get to the bottom of it, whether it be a CAT scan or a PET scan or an MRI or whatever other test people are talking about out there, It does gobble up a lot of money, unnecessarily so, and it does make the wait list unnecessarily long. So anyway, Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services. And here comes a forensic audit, which will also be pretty interesting. What do you think? And let's move to some federal-related matters. So I think people in the country were understandably looking at the population growth commensurate with the growth in the public sector, civil servants. So there has been a move to get back to what people would refer to as a right size of the civil service. But it comes with some problems for some. It's always and long been frustrating to try to deal with the government department. And one of those, absolutely, for many people listening to this program this morning, is the Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA. So they've got a lot of job cuts that have been experienced. So let's see here. The Union of Taxation Employees represents the CRA workers, say nearly 3,300 call center employees have lost their jobs since May 2024. That's going to be even more into the future. According to the Treasury Board database, CRA had 52,499 employees at the end of March of 2025. In 2024, it had 5,155, so 10% of the employees. It's estimated that there's about 4,000 call center employees remain on the job. Workload, way up. Frustration, way up. And it's not the end of it. More job losses will be coming, not only at CRA, but across the board. The spending targets see cuts of 7.5% in the fiscal year begins in April 2026, followed by 10% the year after and 15% in 28-29. So as much as people were wondering about how much money we spend on the civil service and some of the rates of pay, like there's something like 147,000 public sector workers earn six figures. Some of them probably absolutely deserve it. But while we needed jobs to be, while there was a clamor for jobs to be cut, it also comes with a reduction in service. Now when you call CRA, the likelihood of speaking to someone has been dramatically reduced. So on one hand, people want to see the civil service cost the country less. On the other hand, and at the exact same time, and maybe the exact same people will be unbelievably frustrated with the inability to deal with CRA on pressing tax matters. So that's the double-edged sword of what we want and what we talk about. All right, so apparently yesterday the Prime Minister spoke with Donald Trump. And, of course, it would be about trade, peace, security, Ukraine, Europe, and what have you. But, you know, I keep hearing that, look, for starters, there's no question the size, the population, and the economic strength of the United States of America dwarfs us. No doubt. But there's a couple of areas where the Americans have said the quiet part out loud. So 35% raise in the, tariffs at the rate of 35% by the end of July. So that's for things that weren't falling under the application of CUSMA, the free trade agreement, which has been, in essence, torn up. For those goods that were compliant, people talk about 80 to 90% of the goods are compliant, and last year was about 40%. So that's not a real thing. And here's where they've carved out some protections for the American consumer, all the while they say they don't need us, but they have lowered the rate for energy and potash. So they do need us. We have to stop pretending that, oh, we're just a pimple on the arse of the United States. They're so big, we're so small. We've got things they want. We've got things they need. So where the conversation goes, I have no earthly idea. But apparently the conversation was engaged and I think initiated by the Prime Minister yesterday. And if you want to take it on, we can do it. Oh, folks that didn't get their disability benefit federally yesterday, there was an issue with the input codes that they're now working on, but it could take days for people to get their benefits and to be deposited into your bank account. And for the provincial disability benefit that flows, on the third Thursday of each month. So keep your eyes open there. And this, again, all begins with applying for and maybe getting the disability tax credit. Nothing else flows, whether it be the savings plan here, the provincial benefit, the federal benefit. Until you have the disability tax credit, you will not get any of it. Once you get the tax credit, you get all of it. So make sure, have a look online. I'm sure there's people listening to the program this morning that probably qualify but have not applied for. So you can do it in conjunction with your doctor and other professionals. It doesn't always have to be a GP that works out alongside with you, but make sure you apply if you are eligible. And last one. How come we haven't signed on to the National Pharmacare Program? As federal taxpayers, me and you, we're already chipping in on it. So is there a reason? Because I haven't been able to find any information as to why we don't think it's a good idea to sign on to the program. That said, there's only 2 provinces in the country that have. And I believe one of the territories has also signed on. So is there a reason why people in this province are unable to get their diabetic medications and contraceptives paid for by the federal government, given the fact that me and you are paying federal taxes? Just throw it out there for your consideration. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Oh, I did want to mention this one. This is important. One comment on firefighters. And this is from a listener who I believe is a firefighter. In 2016, the government of Newfoundland and Labrador set presumptive cancer coverage for the province's career and volunteer firefighters. There's about 350 active career firefighters, 6,000 active volunteer firefighters, but wildfire fighters employed by fisheries, forestry, and agriculture are not included. That doesn't make any sense to me. How about you? All right, we're also taking your emails. It's openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That means you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on line number 2. Good morning, Blair. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm good, thanks. Just like to commend you on your job that you're doing on your show. I'm not a regular listener, a frequent listener, but I just felt it was a good time to call in. I've listened to you a lot over the years, I guess, in certain times. Today I'm calling about energy consumption or overconsumption, I guess. I know it's maybe beaten to death over the last few months, but I just thought it had to be brought to light, I guess, and resurfaced again.
Okay. What in particular, Blair?
So what I'm doing, I built a new home last year, so I'm just comparing my usage this year to last year, essentially. So for this month in particular, or say from June to July, I just had an increase of 79% usage per day. So I'm using 79% more kilowatt hours per day this year than last year. So just in conversation with my inner circle of friends, I guess, I just asked about it. I know my coworker, they have an equal payment plan, so they pay the same thing every month. They didn't even look at it. So when they got in and looked at theirs, they were up 50%. I asked our neighbor, they were up 97%. One other friend of ours was up 74%. So this is strictly energy use. This is not the cost. I know the rates have gone up, you know?
I do know. Yep.
So I just went to them and just asked them. I seen the papers myself, the statements myself. So it's just kilowatt hours. And then the people that I spoke with, I guess, would think that their energy usage should be gone down. One has 2 teenage boys. They're working this year. And last year, the same thing. Our next door neighbor, they have 2 teenage boys. They're working, so they're not in the home. This type of thing. These are the situations that are going on. I asked my grandparents, who are 85 and still living in their own home, and they went back to January, and they're up on every single bill. They're over about 20-25%. You know, so it just seems to be a bit odd. I did call customer service at Newfoundland Hydro, and they basically gave me a bunch of questions to answer, and they were going to look into it further. Hadn't I heard back from them yet, but they were supposed to look into it a little further. But it just seems a little odd. And then it's not as though, like, no one has any different stories in this. This is every single person that you speak to. It's not, 4 out of 10. It's 4 out of 4 that got the same issues.
I'm with you. So did you call Hydro? So you get your bill from Hydro, not from Newfoundland Power?
Yes, NL Hydro. I'm on the south coast of Labrador.
Okay, very good. I just want to make sure I was on the right track here.
Yeah.
Remember back in February, everybody I spoke to had the exact same complaint. How come my bill is so high? And then, of course, Hydro, Newfoundland Power talked about the cold temperatures and the windy conditions and what have you. Some people accepted it. Many others went, what? Come on. It's not that much different than it was the February prior. Same thing in our house. My usage is way up. Now, it is true that I got the mini split going all day long when the weather's as hot as it is, but I had the mini split last year too. So I don't really understand how my consumption is so far up, because similar to you and the people that you speak to, my children no longer live there. So that's 2 fewer showers, half the laundry, all those types of things. So I'm not so sure what's going on either, to be honest.
Right. So these 4 instances that I'm speaking of, we don't have any mini split, so there's no AC. So that was the first question that NL Hydro customer service had asked. So I know that we had an exceptionally hot month, for our area during that time period. I'm just going to say, for argument's sake, like say mid-June to mid-July, and so there's no AC in any of those. So, I mean, I understand if you're running your AC, if you're 30 degrees every day and your AC, obviously your usage should go up. I know one of those people I'm talking about, they had a teenage son living with them. They washed cars, so they had a shop vac going all day long and, showering and extra extra person living in their house, but still their bill has gone up, or their usage has gone up. I know the rates have gone up. I worked at Muskrat Falls from every part of the project, from the initial road building to the site to the straight bill link to the transmission line. I worked in trades and management. No one has to tell me why the rates are gone up. There's no shock to me. The amount of astronomical amount of overspending during that project was incomprehensible, really. So I'm not talking about the rate. I'm talking about the kilowatt usage per day. I mean, what do you have to do in a household to double your daily usage? Like it's not the day that, okay, you got a family reunion and you got the ovens going for a day, or you got your family staying with you and you got 2 extra people showering, and then you have these cases where people say, I was not in the home at all during this time period, but it is more than it was last year when I was living there. And again, it's a kilowatt, it's the energy usage. So is that something that's possible? Can your home be vacant for a full month and use more energy than if you're there cooking and cleaning and showering and a full operating home? It makes absolutely no sense.
No, in the summertime, that's not really a thing. We've asked that question. Say, for instance, I'm gone on holidays over the course of a winter month, and then I come back, and then in the effort to reheat a frigid home, then of course that does draw a lot of power. I kind of understand that defense or that position put forward by Hydro and Newfoundland Power, but in the summer months, if I'm gone up to the country for the entire month of June and come back with my consumption up, and haven't been there compared to the June prior when I didn't leave for the country for that month, it doesn't make any sense to me. We've tried to get representatives from either or both utilities on, and I guess we'll try again because you're not alone. In the, let's say here, the last 60 days, maybe average 1 email a day about exactly this.
Right. So for me, I mean, like when it comes to getting a representative or something, I'm not involved. Really, I get information from other people. I don't generally see much on Facebook, or I'm not, actively involved in the news or anything like that. I mean, I couldn't be bothered by it, to be honest. So I went back. I know there was an audit done. I went back, just Googled some information, see what I could find on it, and it came back and said the cold and the wind. So are they saying now it's the cold and lonely month of July that's driving our light bill up, or our usage up? I mean, it makes no sense at all. And I mean, it's a crown corporation. The other thing is, there's a reason that people don't audit their own companies. So from what I can gather, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, NL Hydro did an internal audit. Is that correct?
Yes, I think they do an internal audit fairly frequently. Right.
So are the people, I know I'm not, shocked that they come back and said, no, but there's nothing wrong, this type of thing, right? I mean, obviously there's a conflict of interest there to be auditing your own company, and there's a reason that, government don't allow people to audit their own companies. Like, I mean, I'm involved in safety with our company, and I can do an audit on our own program, but every 3 years someone else has to come in and I guess a third party has to come in and audit it, right? I mean, it's a fairly rudimentary concept, I guess, here when it comes to a conflict of interest.
Yeah, so, and it would be two different conversations about an internal audit at Newfoundland Power versus Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, which is a Crown Corp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll chase both. Now that you've got it back on the top of my mind, I will try to help figure this out. Because when we have a representative on, it's also about what we can do to question the recording of how much energy I'm consuming. Because you made the good point right off the bat. We're not talking about the price tag on the bill because the rates have increased. So we're not talking about price per kilowatt hour. We're talking about kilowatt hour usage. And I'll see what I can get done here on the show, Blair.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Blair from Southern Labrador. There we go. That's going to be an important one. Let's take a break. Earlier this week, we're told to increase public safety to allow more of the fully sworn police officers to do their police work. The province will be training and bringing some 12 special constables on to take care of duties like administrative duties, guarding crime scenes, if there's some big traffic interruption, as opposed to a fully sworn police officer doing that particular piece of work. A special constable could. We'll get a reaction now from the president of the RNC Association right after this break. That's Mike Summers. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6 to say good morning to the president of the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary Association. That's Mike Summers. Good morning, Constable. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Mike. Sorry, you probably have a higher rank than that. What is your rank at the RNC? Pardon me?
Staff Sergeant.
Staff Sergeant. So my apologies for the Constable introduction. Staff Sergeant Summers, welcome to the show.
Not a problem. Thank you.
So when I heard the news, because I have a buddy in Ottawa who has asked me many times, why aren't there special constables on staff like there is in Ottawa, and I believe also in Winnipeg? Your reaction when you heard it?
Our reaction was good. Any additional resources that we can get to assist our officers to stay out on the road and do their primary duties, we welcome any additional resources that we can get. And you're right. We're not reinventing the wheel here. There are other forces across the country that do it, like you just indicated, Ottawa, Winnipeg, that sort of type thing. And this has come from some of the consultation sessions that we as an association have had with our members and with the transformation committee that government put together there a couple of years ago.
There's a couple of questions and interesting ones because I mentioned some of the duties they can perform, which makes all the sense in the world to me. A fully sworn police officer standing alongside a tipped-over transport truck on the highway for 8 hours, probably not a good use of his or her experience and training. So the special constable can take on something like that. But in the whole big scheme of things, will there also be a role for these special constables, in your opinion, or should it be a part of their roles, for things like rebuilding some trust between law enforcement and the general population, to be involved in things like community activities, to be involved in things like deterrence of crime? Is it beyond simply supervising crime scenes and standing by tipped-over transport trucks and filling out paperwork?
Well, I think, there's a lot of details that we have to iron out when it comes to what functions they're going to be able to perform and that sort of type thing. And government has said to us that, they're willing to sit down with us so that we can iron out some of those details. When you talk about rebuilding the trust net, if these special constables are taking on some of the minor duties and the administrative stuff, that will then allow our officers to go out and do those things of rebuilding that trust and be out in the communities more and have a greater presence and be seen more out in the community.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's because of what we see on the news, what might seep into the hearts and minds of people in Canada that comes from American news outlets or what have you. But do you get the sense that the sense I get is that there is a disconnect, probably larger than in the past, Mike, about the relationship between law enforcement agencies, including the RNC, and the general population. Is that a sentiment shared amongst the ranks?
I don't believe so, Patty.
Okay.
I go back to, the whole defund the police thing and the George Floyd and incident and all that. And unfortunately, you're right. A lot of that does seep up from below the border and that sort of type thing. But I do personally believe that the RNC has a great relationship with the communities that we police. And we're always going to have incidents every now and then that will come through. But the unfortunate part is that, in the news, it's always seems that there's an abundance or the news will gravitate to a bad incident where our members are out in the communities every day doing lots of good work in rebuilding that sense of trust with the community. A lot of our members are volunteering and going out and doing community stuff. I'm tied up this week with the Canada Games, and I've seen a lot of our members out wearing the orange coats and everything, volunteering for the Canada Games. So we're out in the communities, and I don't believe that a lot of that sentiment is seeped up into Newfoundland and Labrador from below the border.
I'm not sure how to ask this question. I'll do my best, though. When we talk about the prevalence of more serious crimes, sexual assaults and extortions and gun-related crimes and some serious drug issues in certain pockets of the province, not to get into specifics on, personal information, but has that caused more RNC officers to be on extended leave or whatever the case might be? Because we've heard the RNC Association talking about the need for additional police officers. So are there a significant number of officers who are on extended leave because of some of the serious crime and some of the things they may have experienced in the past?
I'm not sure what the exact numbers are, Patty, but I do know that we do have members, at times take, I don't know if you'd call it extended leave, but accommodations and that sort of type thing. And I believe that these special constables will help alleviate some of the workload on our members. And we've had discussions with the government in that these special constables are certainly in no way, shape, or form going to replace the police officers, because we have been in the news that we would like to see our complement up to the national police to population ratio. We are below that there right now, and we are in discussions with management and government, and we are bringing our numbers up. We have a class graduating now next month. We have another class going away in January, and we're trying to get our numbers up to that police population ratio. So we need to be up somewhere around 460 members. So I think that will alleviate then some of those issues that may cause our members to go off, be it a heavy workload, some of the stresses and strains from certainly the calls that we attend, because you're right, the crime statistics have gone up, and there is a lot more gun crime in this province, gun crime and the drugs and everything that come in. So hopefully more officers will help alleviate some of those stressors on our officers that are currently working.
Have you seen an increase in applicants given the $15,000 bursary that was talked about?
I'm not sure what our numbers are. They right across the country, recruitment numbers have been down. But I certainly do believe that this bursary helps. But that I would like to see it even more than that. Whether or not the full tuition is paid for, or we place our cadets on a salary when they go away, because I know some of the other police forces across the country are looking at that too, because it is difficult if you have to quit a job or whatever. If you apply for a police force and then have to go away to training, it would be difficult if you're a full-time employee somewhere else to quit your job and have to give up a salary for 6 or so months. So we're looking at different ways to help members who want to apply to become a police officer.
And you made the call here this morning. I sort of took the conversation in my own direction. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't got to?
No, that was, I heard in your preamble yesterday with regards to the announcement the day before with regards to this. And, I just wanted to put it out there that we see this as a benefit. Any resources, like I said, that will assist our officers and allow them to free themselves up and get out and patrol the cities or the streets that we have jurisdiction over. Anything that frees them up and gets them out doing that, we applaud that. And certainly that, as long as this doesn't take away from, like I said earlier, of getting our complement up to the national police population ratio.
Staff Sergeant Mike Summers is the president of the RNC Association. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Patty. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. There you go. There's, that was a rounded conversation. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the impact of the Canada Games on minor sports, crown lands, heat pumps, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go. Line number 5. Bruce, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Paddy Daly. How are you today, sir?
Great today. How about you?
Good, sir. Good. If it was any better, I'd cancel my life insurance.
Good man.
You're doing a great job there, by the way. I always love your open and honest answers to the public.
Thank you.
I just had a couple of things on my mind this morning. One being the cell phone coverage here, in and around the city here. on the highways, byways, and the other was the Canada Games thing. I got a couple before I went into the cell phone coverage. I cover the children. I got 2 small children participating in sports in and around the St. John's, Mount Pearl area, and I just want to say, and I don't want to come across as a dog in the manger either, but all our own programs, our kids have been put out or postponed or cancelled as a result of the Canada Games. All their sports. I got a daughter, 8 years old, participates in soccer, and they haven't seen the field in August. Everything has been cancelled or watered down or pushed back. I got another boy in baseball. I think he's seen his team twice in August. So I noticed. I love the media is soaking it up, and it's certainly a big news and a great thing too. It's great for the economy and stuff. But I don't know the purpose was ever intended that our own programs would all be suspended. The idea is to promote sport and the children getting out into the sun themselves. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there because everything I hear is Canada Games, Canada Games, Canada Games, while our own children are all sitting on the wayside and twiddling their thumbs, waiting for this to come and go.
It's a fair point. I heard from a lady overnight. She has a toddler playing minor soccer here in the city of St. John's. So the first 5 weeks they were at one field, and they're supposed to be playing at Churchill Square. And given some of the remnants of the Churchill Park Music Festival and other soccer pitches being used up, they haven't been able to play either. And that's a real problem. I do know someone who's a friend of mine. He's a minor soccer coach, and given the fact that his team was also derailed, he's just getting together once or twice a week just on a regular old field, like around Kent's Pond or whatever the case may be, to have a kick and get together, that kind of stuff. But you're right, it's an economic impact. It's the elite athletes in the country playing in 19 different sports. They will leave behind some better infrastructure and fields and the like for our minor sports kids to use in the future. But it is a problem for the summer. Completely understand where you're coming from.
Well, I think that in a lot of cases they talk about field availability, but my experience has been all the fields have been left open, and they've all the resources are gone towards reffing Canada Games or participating in those events as opposed to putting their time into these programs. It's great that, like you said, the infrastructure piece, but there it is. It's a year that basically little or none has gotten done here.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to come across as, like I say, a dog in the manger or a stick in the mud. But
no, but I'm going to ask you a question on that, though. So if some of the pitches or fields are still available, but no games are scheduled, has anyone told you why that might be, whether it be the folks at the Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association? Like, is it about officials or is it about something that I'm missing here?
No, I wasn't told specifically. I mean, the fields that they were supposed to be playing at those times, I noticed in travel that they've been vacant. Nobody's been using them, whether it's baseball diamonds or soccer pitches. And that's sporadic. I mean, I haven't inquired, but and I guess in the case of soccer, it was just totally for the month of August until after the 25th. There's no more soccer. There's no answers other than that.
Yeah, it's a disrupted season, unfortunately so. No doubt about it, Bruce. Did you also want to talk about cell phones or something as well?
I did. I noticed. I assumed that our cell phone towers had burned down or something. I was out on the highway just the other day and went from here to Clark's Beach down to St. Joe back around to Fermuse again on a business trip. But during the way, I couldn't conduct telephone business. I mean, it just coverage is gone altogether. I mean, I'm not on the social media platforms anymore, so I don't know what we're doing about this, if anything. But cell phone coverage has gone from good to bad, in my opinion, here on the Avalon. I don't know if this has been everyone else's experience or what's gone on, but I understand from talking to people that we're gone to 5G now, and of course that's all about speed as opposed to distance or coverage. I'm just curious as to what we're doing about that, if anything. I mean, I pay myself. I got my son's on my line as well. Charge me $150 a month. I mean, that's a lot of money. If millions or possibly more over time, and for what? What infrastructure?
Excellent question. People will think or say that the province really owns the responsibility to enhance cell phone coverage, to expand high-speed broadband, and there is 10 spots this year that will get the same as the pilot project on the Burgeo Highway last year. But look, whether it be the advent of 5G and more people using the services of one particular tower or another, the fact of the matter is My service that used to be completely reliable in certain parts of the city are now spotty. So every single person I know is experiencing the same thing. Like in my own home, if I'm standing at the island closest to the sink, I can send a text. If I go sit on the couch by the TV, I can't. In the city of St. John's at the east end of town. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And what are we doing about this? I mean, are we we've taken it on the chin, or is there a petition somewhere I can sign, or I don't know, because I don't follow. I'm trying to stay off social media. I was addicted to that once. I've beaten my addiction. Believe me, I haven't been on there in a year.
Yeah, no, social media is gross. If it wasn't for the show, I wouldn't be on it at all. That's a good question. I'm not aware off the top of my head of any such petition. I know the province has made this reference to the federal government on these types of issues. There is a recent ruling at the CRTC, which the government is not going to amend, about allowing the sharing of infrastructure, and that would allow more and more of the smaller carriers to get in on the game, but that would only be a competitive issue regarding the price on my bill. It's not going to increase or enhance reliability. And I mean, these big three telecoms in particular, they carry a pretty big stick. And regardless of the size of the stick or the decibels of their growl, the federal government does hold some cards here. It's a federally regulated industry.
Exactly. That's right, yeah. And yeah. And what are we doing down here, down east?
It's a good question. Yeah, and we shouldn't just have to take it, because I'm irritated by it, I know that. And it's all bad enough of me belly aching from the east end of town. What about if I live up and down the Burin Peninsula, or parts of Labrador, or wherever you're calling from this morning, where the service used to be okay and now it's non-existent?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I didn't make it as far as CBS out on the Trans-Canada. I had to give up talking to people on the phone there. Yeah. I tried again. It was better to send you. The Southern Shore was okay further, but as you get closer, for example, the Babel's Big Pond there, forget it. Don't talk. You ain't talking to anybody there either.
Waste of time to try.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah, so it's not just frustrating and inconvenience and, paying for unreliable service. There is a distinct air of public safety concerns associated with this. There really, truly is. Right. Bruce, I appreciate you making time for the show. I got to get to the newscast.
Thanks for taking my call, Paddy. Have a good day.
Anytime. Same to you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break, and the order of events will be newscast now. Come back, take another call. Then we're going to take a break to go into the press conference this morning, and hopefully the questions you need answered will be done by the representatives of the government and Newfoundland Power here this morning. Let's take that break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Tina. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi there.
I just want to. I'm a first-time caller, and I'm just wondering if one of your listeners might be able to help me.
Okay.
I'm trying to apply for a grant for my mom for a heat pump for her house. I've applied for 2 grants, but I couldn't get them. We were turned down. One of them was through Newfoundland Labrador Housing, but it was a $5,000 grant. But after I did the application, I found out that it don't cover heat pumps. It's more like for heating insulating your basement and stuff.
Right.
And then they told me to try through Hydro, and I applied for one through Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, but I knew when I applied for it that it was through for the oil rebate but I thought it was through Greener Homes too.
Yeah, the Greener Homes grant. Yeah, all that money's gone. Greener Homes grant has been wound down. So there's the oil to heat pump affordability monies that are out there. That's up to like $22,000. What you should do, and the best place to go, is to Take Charge. So takechargenl.ca.
Yeah, I tried that, but see, she don't have oil. She got a wood furnace. That's the problem. And the furnace is getting old, and she's 79 years old, and we're worried it's getting hard for her going to the basement lighting the furnace. And we were hoping to get a heat pump to put in, but she'd need one for the split or whatever it's called, one for upstairs and downstairs for the basement too.
Yeah, when it comes to wood furnaces, that's a tricky one. Here's what I'm going to suggest to you. So go to one of the heat pump companies. So like Cold Air Contracting or someone like that. They have access to every single program. They'll help walk you through it. They'll help you fill out the application. Why? Because they want to sell you a heat pump. So just pick one of the heat pump companies, go to them, and they will help you out. I put many people on, and they all come back and say they got what they needed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And keep me in the loop. Let me know how it goes. If you don't have any luck, we'll go back at it.
Yes, because it's not fair. Like, it's all for oil, but there's a lot of people out there with wood furnaces, and it's too bad, like, for seniors that can't afford to pay all that money for heat pumps.
Right. So call one of those companies, Cold Air Contracting or Heat Pump Solutions or Polar Air or Keep Cool Refrigeration. Just pick a heat pump company, call them, and they'll sort you out, if possible.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Tina. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Before we get to the break, let's go to line 3. Alex Taylor, you're on the air.
How you doing, Betty?
Best kind. How about you?
Fairly well. I wanted to tell you about the total for the NL Wildfire fundraiser I had a few nights back.
Let's hear it.
So overall, we raised $2,400. And also, I'd like to send a thanks to all the volunteers, firefighters, and water bombers who have been out there working. We really appreciate it, all the folks. And I'd like to thank you and all the folks at the station as well for your support.
Happy to do, Alex. And once again, congratulations. That's a significant amount of money. And for all of your friends and colleagues, fellow musicians and otherwise, good on you for doing it. Bravo.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Alex. Thanks for sharing the update.
No worries. Take care, Patty.
You too, pal. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, we're going to the press conference from the Premier, other members of the government, and, of course, Gary Murray, the President of Newfoundland Power. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. So while we wait for the Premier to open up the press conference today, joined in the studio by VOCM News' Brian Bador. Brian, good to have you in.
Thanks, Paddy.
Lots on the line, plenty of questions here. I'm anticipating a pretty significant and question-loaded press conference today.
This one is going to be jam-packed, absolutely. I noticed the presence of Newfoundland Power. A lot of people have been wondering about that component. You know they do have some idea of the damage to the infrastructure as it relates to power. That's going to be one of the big questions. We heard Mayor of Adams Cove on this morning documenting and detailing some of the damage that he's aware of in that area, and it is significant.
We call it the Kingston Fire, but of course some 9 communities have been impacted. Some of the estimates, about 203 structures lost because they've lost use of power, is one thing, but just wait till we get boots on the ground, so to speak, to get in and actually see the devastation, which begs the question that many evacuees are asking me. What next? Things like Carbonear Academy. It's a school in 2 weeks. So there's a lot of stuff that the different ministerial departments and the Premier and Newfoundland Power and others are going to have to figure out, and we don't have a lot of time to figure it out.
So many things that we can't even think of at this period that we're into. How are they even going to send people back there? What is the process? We saw in Port aux Basques after Fiona, for example, they had to have building inspectors go into each and every building. That was an arduous process to go into a building, do a document report as to the stability of the structure, the livability of the structure. You don't do that in 5 minutes. That is a significant undertaking. How much of that is going to have to go on in this situation, we can't even begin to comprehend at this point. Hopefully we'll get at least some idea with this briefing that's coming up.
Right, and that will also include having to go in to do these set inspections, not only for personal insurance, but also to evaluate the cost of the damages done, because that has to be done, and it's a sole responsibility of the province when it comes to applying for federal funds in the Disaster Relief Fund. Then just add to it, cleanup is going to take a long time. So while we talk about rebuilding and where the contractors are to do said rebuild, first we've got to get through the fires to see them all doused, then we have to move off to the cleanup phase, and then into the thought and the concept of rebuild, which is not going to be an overnight task, to say the very least. A 40-year veteran of the construction industry said local crews could probably build about 2 turnkey homes per year. And other contractors are busy. So how this looks into the future, and I hate to get out in front of myself here over my skis, because we're still talking about putting the fires out and getting people back to exactly know what has been lost.
Okay, we're getting pretty close here now.
So apparently the representatives of the government are sitting down to give us some of the information from a variety of angles. I don't know if we're going to take any questions and answers today, Dave, but maybe we should just take the first couple, because there might be some specifics that I'm fielding here on the show that we're not getting answers to, because we just take the comments coming from the ministers and the Premier and Gary Murray. So maybe we'll think about during the press conference to hear some of these questions, see if we have more specifics that have been addressed by the representatives here this morning.
Thanks for coming again this morning for another update on the wildfire situation here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Joining me again today is Minister Korab, and Minister Haggie is online. I'd also like to welcome today Gary Murray, who's President and CEO of Newfoundland Power. As well, Steve Balsam, Assistant Deputy Minister of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture, is joining us online as well. Overall this week, it has been a very productive week for fire suppression. We've even seen one fire, the Paddy's Pond fire, move to being classified as under control. And the Martin Lake fire has now been classified as being held, as opposed to out of control as they were for the last couple of weeks. And while we continue to make headway, we know there's still a long road ahead of us in terms of recovery efforts. I want to just note that the volunteer fire departments throughout the province, and really I mean throughout the province, who have come to CBN and come to Paddy's Pond and come to Martin Lake to work and to help on these fires. We've heard from some of them about issues that they now have with regards to damaged equipment. Certainly when you do planning for situations like this, and we have a program for local fire departments to apply for equipment and trucks, they don't necessarily plan for events where all their equipment is going to be damaged in the matter of 1 or 2 weeks. So we recognize that that's happened and not something that they expected. So we will be asking the fire commissioner to contact all the volunteer fire departments who have helped out over the last few weeks to get an assessment on any potential lost or damaged inventory. We'll work with those volunteer fire departments as we move forward as part of the recovery efforts as well. So again, recognizing it has been a very dynamic and challenging situation, and we know that people are eager to get home. And I want to assure everybody that the Department of Forestry and our emergency operations are working closely. We're continuing to monitor the fire behavior, the weather, impacts on communities, and we will make changes to alerts and advisories as soon as it's reasonably safe to do so. The good news this morning is that we are going to be able to lift the alert on Job's Cove and lift the alert for freshwater as well. But we're still looking at the evacuation orders and lifting those again when it's only reasonably safe to do so. There's a very long checklist that we have to go through to make sure that not only that the fire is out, but that the communities are safe for any various number of reasons, including things like power to homes, damage to homes that you might not see at first glance, roads, bridges, things like that. So there is a lot of work to do before those evacuation orders can be lifted. I just want to speak a little bit about some of the groups that have been putting in really amazing efforts over the last few weeks. Yesterday, we had the opportunity to meet with members of the Canadian Armed Forces here in St. John's. Minister Korab was there as well, Minister Crocker, our Avalon MP, Paul Connors, and Federal Minister Joanne Thompson, and couldn't thank them enough and expressed our deep gratitude for their service, not only to Canada, but in particular to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And then when the wildfires threatened our communities, the Canadian Armed Forces stepped up really without hesitation. They've been so professional, so courageous, and so dedicated, and much needed support has really helped our province in our time of real need. But most importantly, what they spoke about was our dedicated team here at the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre. And they spoke about how proud they were to work with them and how they worked seamlessly with them. And it was really gratifying and a proud moment to hear that they could show up here, dozens and dozens of members from the Canadian Armed Forces, and work seamlessly, as I said, with the people here at the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre. You can only imagine logistically how difficult it is to integrate hundreds of individuals into a system, but they certainly did so, and the Canadian Armed Forces couldn't speak highly enough of our team at PEOC. They certainly displayed, skilled and passion right from across the country, and they're so proud to have the opportunity to come here and support Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So on behalf of all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, I again want to thank everybody from the Canadian Armed Forces, and I want to thank Minister Thompson as well for her efforts and her open lines of communication over the last 3 weeks. It's been invaluable to getting people on the ground here to help fight these forest fires. We certainly won't forget their courage and their commitment as they continue to work on these fires. I also had the opportunity to meet with members of the St. John's Regional Fire Department this morning, and no big surprise, they shared the exact same stories we heard from the Canadian Armed Forces. Chief Sherry Colford, Deputy Chief Paul Chater, and Platoon Chief Mike Hall welcomed us there this morning to talk about what they've done and how they've worked with not only the Canadian Armed Forces, but they've worked with fire departments from out this region as well, including Witless Bay, Torbay, CBS, Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, St. John's Airport as well. And again, they spoke about the seamless efforts of people working side by side, people that had never met each other before, but nobody sort of got their egos in front of the situation. And everyone just sort of answered the call when the time came, showed up, did what they felt they could, and did what they were told to do, and worked side by side with people, like I said, they hadn't met before. And again, I think that's just a testament to how everybody put the safety of their communities first, not necessarily the safety of themselves. And again, can't thank them enough for their efforts. I want to also acknowledge PAL Aerospace today. This is a local company, of course, that everybody is familiar with, and they've played a very important role in help our firefighting efforts. What they're doing now is carrying out an exercise to fly over the active fires using infrared technology to help us pinpoint the remaining hotspots. And this work will help further progress on the Kingston fire over the next few days to ensure the other fires can be safely declared out as well. And again, another example of how the strength and expertise that we have right here in Newfoundland and Labrador is being used to protect our communities. The Canadian Red Cross, of course, Minister Korab as well and Minister Haggie as well have been to the evacuation center in CBN in particular, and the other ones throughout the province, and we've seen firsthand the tremendous work that they're doing. It has been a devastating event, and we know the response isn't over yet, so the Red Cross is going to be continuing to do their great work here in the next number of days and potentially weeks. So today I would like to announce that our provincial government will be matching every dollar donated to the Canadian Red Cross 2025 Newfoundland and Labrador Wildfires Appeal. So this means that for every dollar contributed by individuals or businesses, the province will match it. So it will double the impact of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians' generosity. And of course, with the federal government matching the donations as well, it really means that every dollar will now become $3 to help families, communities, and frontline responders who have been affected by these devastating wildfires. This support will ensure the Red Cross has the resources it needs to assist evacuees and provide relief and continue to help our communities recover. So as for specific updates on the wildfires, as I said, overnight last night, PAL Aerospace conducted aerial thermal scans of all 3 wildfire areas to identify areas of concern. It does give us a very good picture of where the hotspots are around the houses and communities and across terrain. And once this data is collected and analyzed, this information is used by the incident management team to formulate plans of attack moving forward. In Kingston, the crews reported another strong day of fire suppression on the Kingston wildfire from both the air and the ground. Aerial mapping has been completed, and the fire is estimated to be just over 10,000 hectares. There were clear skies yesterday, which allowed for steady aerial attacks, and in the western area, 8 water bombers worked the boundary lines and finished the day with a mission at the southern edge. 5 heavy-capacity helicopters worked on the north side, and crews from the province and from Ontario spent the day at both ends of the wildfire, providing ground suppression along the edges. Structure protection was actioned by local fire departments, and the Canadian Armed Forces, again, were working in priority areas where there were hotspots. We also had bucketing occurring on the southeast corner of the fire, and water bombers will continue to work that throughout the day. The plan today is 9 water bombers, 5 helicopters, and 1 bird dog, 22 incident management team personnel, which will be shared with Paddy's Pond, and ground crews of 11 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, 20 from Ontario, 22 from BC, 3 platoon military, which is 66 personnel, and 100 volunteer firefighters. After several days of dedicated work by Newfoundland and Labrador, BC, and Canadian Armed Force ground crews at Paddy's Pond, the wildfire, as I said, is now classified as under control. So this means that the wildfire has received sufficient suppression action to ensure there will be no further spread of this fire. The BC crew will now move to Paddy's Pond, from Paddy's Pond to the Kingston wildfire to provide support there today. There still will be 1 helicopter and 5 Newfoundland and Labrador firefighters at Paddy's Pond today. Martin Lake remains as being held, and ground crews spent the day yesterday digging into hotspots, and ground suppression work will continue throughout the day. Yesterday, forestry officials reopen a portion of the resource road at Miguel Lake, which is located 3 kilometers from the Bay d'Espoir Highway, or Route 360. But please note that the road is only open to cabin owners located at Miguel Lake. Access to cabins beyond there, as well as cabins in Martin Lake and Rushy Pond areas, are remaining closed at this time. We'll have 4 helicopters and 54 ground personnel at Martin Lake today. Just a couple of other notes. As the weather starts to cool, it is important to remember that wildfire season is not over. Of course, the fire ban remains in place until at least September 7th. But effective immediately, we are only suspending operating permits under the Forestry Act when a region is under a very high or extreme fire hazard rating. Previously, this included areas with a high fire hazard rating. So permit holders will be updated on this situation, but of course they can find that information online as well. Just an update on the structure loss and the notification process. We noted some discrepancies between Newfoundland Power and what was seen on the ground. So this is why we want to make sure everybody notes that the numbers that were given in terms of structure loss will fluctuate, both up and down. It actually has gone down from 203 to 196 due to those discrepancies. That was 2 fewer in Western Bay, 2 fewer in Ocrapick Cove, and 3 fewer in Northern Bay. And of those 196, 179 people have been officially notified of the loss of their structure. And again, to those individuals who have lost structures, my deepest sympathies. I'm incredibly no words to say how sorry we are for that. And I know it's going to be a long road ahead for those individuals and families who have lost their homes and lost their communities. But of course, Minister Korab's team is in place to work with them, and there are individuals from Minister Korab's former department, families, the Department of Families, to talk to individuals about what they want going forward in terms of rebuilding their structures and potentially where they want to live in the medium term until they find out a more permanent solution. So with that, I will pass it over to Minister Korab.
Thank you, Premier. I also want to take a moment to thank the Red Cross and Salvation Army and everyone involved for the work they've done. Specifically, the Armed Forces, as the Premier said. They got the call late in the evening. They landed at 2 a.m. here in Newfoundland and were up and running that day, helping with these wildfires. So I just want to say thank you to the Armed Forces as well. The work on our Cabinet Committee is well underway. The committee is fully formed. We have ministers represented from Justice and Public Safety, Transportation and Infrastructure, Education, Family, Childhood Development, Families and Affordability, Health, Community Service, Housing, Municipal Affairs, Community Engagement, Rural Economic Development, and Industry, Energy, and Technology. We've had 2 productive meetings so far, yesterday and this morning. I just came from one. So I want to be clear, this Cabinet Committee is set up, just by nature, it's set up with Cabinet Ministers, but there will be extensive engagement with the residents and the communities in Conception Bay North. So we want to be clear on that. And they'll be front and center working with us every step of the way as we work through this. The committee members are represented by the departments. They're crucial in these response efforts. And the purpose is to ensure that we work together, hand in hand with these communities as we work through these recovery efforts. As soon as the Premier announced this committee was forming, I went out to Carbonear that day and talked to the impacted individuals. Multiple conversations about their homes lost, 100-year homes lost. So it was a taxing day, and again, as the Premier said, can't imagine what it's like to go through something like that. But I just wanted to again repeat that, know that we're here. We're also going to ensure that local representatives have their say, and this will be communicated all the way right up to the federal government to ensure that everyone understands the full context, the full impact. That's what's happened here. So again, I just wanted to let people know that your voices will be heard as we move forward. As you can appreciate, we can appreciate that we're in very uncertain times. The people of Conception Bay North are seeking answers. We understand that. We're working our best to get those answers. Please know that we're moving as fast as we can with urgency and a sense of purpose. Even so, this will take some time. The scope of this work is wide-ranging, and it's going to involve countless partners working together. Newfoundland Power will go next and talk about that, but it's not as simple as just turning the power back on. Some of the examples, and this isn't inclusive, but we need to make sure there's clean drinking water, air quality, hazardous materials from buildings to deceased livestock, roadways, bridges, communications. You have to be able to call 911, so we work with the telecommunications companies. We have the access to fuel, access to healthcare. So there's a lot of things things that impact how quick residents can get back to these areas, but know that we're working as quickly as we can. So as I've said, we're committed to this recovery effort. We're on it, and we will get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Haggie, you're on mute. There you go.
Thank you very much, Premier. I think it's only important for me also to add my thanks for the work the volunteers have been doing and for the spirit shown by the evacuees. It's a difficult situation, and it's not going to be resolved as quickly as everyone would like, unfortunately. And it will be a period of ups and downs. But we've done stuff like this before, and we've got through it. The reception centre is still a hub, a hive of activity, thanks to the Red Cross and the Salvation Army. We have 3,185 households registered for a total of 6,513 individuals. To date, the Red Cross have dispersed 1,552 emergency financial support payments. The Salvation Army and their helpers have delivered, I think the last count was over 12,000 meals. I was down at the reception centre the other day, greeted by goats at the door, therapy goats, and went into the kitchens with appropriate headgear on, and the Knights of Columbus, the Shriners, the Masons. I was amazed at the variety of people who, as the Premier said, just put their egos on one side and got down to it. The NLHS staff there actually have a mini care facility at one end of the building, and that is working smoothly. Again, I would echo Minister Korab's comments. There is a 2-page checklist of things that need to be done, and only about 4 or 5 of them are now related to the fire. Premier's alluded to hotspots near the community, hotspots in the tree line, and growth or no growth of the fire at the perimeter. There are comments on social media that for some nefarious purposes we're keeping people out of their homes so we can do stuff with the military or firefighters. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reason that people are not allowed back in their homes under the evacuation order is purely for their safety and well-being. No other reason at all. It is a difficult time. There are mental health supports available, and there are also discussions between the association, the Fire Services Association and LLHS to try and find a way that works for first responders to also receive this support. So with that, Premier, I will end as I have done before. Be kind to each other and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Now, Gary Murray, as I said, President and CEO of Newfoundland Power, who I'm very thankful for him being available today to update on what Newfoundland Power has done and what they're facing, and I appreciate them working very closely with the province and certainly with Mr. Korab's committee as we go forward. So, Gary.
Thank you, Premier Hogan. Good morning, everyone. Let me start by saying to all the communities impacted by the devastating wildfires, on behalf of all of us at Newfoundland Power, please know our thoughts are with you during this difficult time. We also extend enormous gratitude to all the firefighters and others who have been working tirelessly to protect our communities, and all the other volunteers who are helping in evacuation centres and other activities. I would also like to recognise our own employees who have stood at the ready to assist whenever and wherever needed. Newfoundland Power has been working closely with Provincial Emergency Operations Centre and other emergency response to the wildfires in our province this summer. When wildfires threaten the communities we serve, our role includes turning off power at the request of emergency partners to assist firefighting efforts and to keep first responders and the public safe. We have also assisted government with using our mapping technology and metering information to confirm the individuals whose homes and other meter structures have been destroyed by the Kingston fire. This week, when and where it was safe to do so, we have entered the impacted communities to assess damage to Newfoundland Power's infrastructure, while addressing immediate safety issues that could threaten first responders, such as unstable pole structures, low wires, and hanging equipment like pole-top transformers, to name a few. We have identified approximately 200 poles that have been compromised or destroyed by the fire. That is about 12% of the total 1,750 poles in the fire area. We will be replacing 125 of these as it is safe to do so. The remaining 75 will not be replaced until property reconstruction occurs. After 2 days of work this week, we have replaced 30 of the 125 poles. And our crews and all our team are determined to complete this work as quickly and as safely as possible, dependent upon our ability to gain access to the areas. So, what that really means is that, it is still an active fire area, so depending upon the conditions, we may or may not have access to certain areas. For example, there's one area where there's 3 poles that we know that need to be replaced, and luckily this morning we were able to get authorization to enter that area. So as we get more access to all of these areas, we will be able to address these poles in a timely manner to make complete restoration of our assets. And this will allow then power to be restored to all of the communities, and then we will work with government. Once they are aware of that, they will notify residents about re-entry and those types of things. So we will continue to work closely with government and our emergency partners as the wildfire response and recovery efforts evolve. I would like to extend a thank you to Premier Hogan, Minister Korab, Minister Haggie, and the Government Committee and Cabinet and their leadership during this time, and the many others who are contributing to the provincial emergency operations effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. And just from Gary's update, obviously you can see that there is a lot of work to do, but they're already, a good chunk of the way through that work, so that's very much appreciated. It just goes to Minister Korab's point and Minister Haggie. There is a long checklist of things that need to be done. It's not just about the fires being out or under control until people can return to communities, but we want people to know that we're working on them, and some of the work has already been done despite the fact that individuals can't go home yet. So we will get there, and we're working as hard and as fast as we can. If anybody has any questions.
Maybe you can provide some more information on the discrepancy in the numbers and why you think that discrepancy might have been there.
Well, yeah, so as we work through the work on the ground, finding, actually identifying structures that are lost, matching them up maybe with the municipal town offices, some of which obviously are in local service districts and don't have that, and then matching them up with Newfoundland power bills. They're not all matching 100% as we anticipated when we gathered all that information. So a discrepancy of 7 out of 203, that's probably not to be unexpected, and we'll continue to make sure we get all that accurate information as we can as we continue to contact people who have lost homes or lost structures. So just for an example, maybe there could be a power bill in someone's name that has 2 structures, so maybe their shed and maybe their home. So we counted it as 2, and with one we counted it as 1, and maybe it should be 2, for example. So it just takes a little bit of time to make sure we get 100% accuracy, but that's pretty close so far, and we'll continue to update the public on those numbers.
How does restoring power impact, I guess, how the timeline of people getting back into their homes? Does all the power need to be back on before people can go back, or do all the poles need to be replaced?
I'm sure Minister Korab has discussed that at his committee, but that's one part of the process, is restoring power. Certainly don't want individuals returning in the event it's not safe, and power is an important part of being safe.
Yeah, similar today with Job's Cove and Freshwater, it'll be a phased approach as people go back in. So as power's on in those areas, that checklist that we talked about is safe to do so, will be phased in, but obviously the power is an integral part of that re-entry process.
Minister Korab, I'm curious about what you heard on the ground when you were in Carbonear and how you're going to take that into the conversations with your committee.
The first time I was out there was Victoria, which was probably 2 weeks ago now. In those early stages was different than where we are now when I was out there last. Communication was a big thing that we heard. We've really ramped that up as we're doing here now today and just about every other day. The loss of their homes and how that works going forward, how we help residents there. But again, as I said earlier, we want to hear directly from residents. What is it you want to see as your community is shaped going forward? Because some of these communities will look different than they were 3 weeks ago. So we'll take everything they say, and it will form how we help restore these communities.
It's less than 2 weeks until back to school, and of course there's a lot of questions we're getting from people still just about, what that looks like, because there's one school that's gone and those people will be sent elsewhere, but there's other schools that are still evacuation centers and these sorts of things. When will people start to, I guess, know what the plan is for what back to school looks like for the CBN region if, people aren't back in their homes and this sort of thing?
So certainly the Minister of Education is continuing to work on that. Obviously, we've lost one school that's been destroyed, and we'll have to work with the families of children at that school. What we will be doing is moving the evacuation center out of Carbonear Academy. Of course, we need that available for schooling. I think over the next week, we'll certainly look at where the fires are, where people can go. If some communities might be able to return home, which will help us plan for other evacuation centers that may be needed. And certainly now that we know 170 odd people have been contacted about loss of structures. We'll start talking to them about, do they want to go to an evacuation center? We're looking at other housing options around that part of the province, including motels and temporary living accommodations that have been used by temporary foreign workers. So that's all part of the process that plays into the children getting back to school on time.
Welcome back to the show. So I guess we gleaned a couple of things from that particular press conference, from Gary Murray at Newfoundland Power, about how they evaluate the potential losses and the restoration of power and the safe conditions required before doing so. I wanted to hang on for a couple of questions from reporters in attendance, specifically the one asked in the third question about schools. So when schools are used as emergency temporary shelters, of course, extremely important to do everything possible we can for the evacuees. But the fact of the matter is, in a couple of weeks, kids are going back to school. The basics were they were working on plans to accommodate the students and for the evacuees, because for the most part, they're going to be out of their homes for a stretch yet. And add to it, some of the folks who have been evacuated have lost their home. So no real specifics there, as opposed to the creation of this commission or this task force to work on these particular matters, to consult the general public about how the community will look upon the attempt to rebuild, those types of things. The Premier did say off the top that the province has now decided, much akin to the federal government, the decision to match donations flowing to the Canadian Red Cross. He knew that was going to happen, right? That was an inevitability. So a little bit there to understand. Diversion of resources from, say, for instance, the Paddy's Pond fire to fight the Kingston fire, which remains out of control. But I'm not so sure that folks who have big questions, especially the thousands who are now under evacuation orders, if they really got a whole lot more than they knew prior to the news conference. I'm not suggesting that these are easy times, because they're not. Extremely difficult for those who have been evacuated, extremely difficult for trying to have the various government agencies and charitable organizations to come up with strategic long-term plans. The short term, we get it. But the long term, I'm not so sure we've got a whole lot. And again, I'm not trying to say that these people should know better. Where's the plan? Because it's a complicated issue, to say the very least. Just in an effort to try to get back on track here with our breaks, let's get one in here now. When we come back, Eugene wants to talk about North Shore residents. Bob's got a question about smokes, and then we got lots of time left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back. Where would you like me to start here? David Williams, line number what? Put up some fingers. Line number 1. Here we go. Eugene, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, I'm Noel Pelican. I'm from Northern Bay.
Okay, welcome to the show.
I just like to point out, Job's Cove, Burn Point, Gull Island, and Northern Bay, up to Northern Bay Sands. There has been no fire damage. All the poles are still there, but there was no talk this morning about these communities. They're painting the whole thing as destroyed. And, those communities, all the homes are still there. The poles are there. The roads are fine. I was up to my house once. I couldn't get up the last few days because they stopped it. And when I drove up, right up to Northern Bay, which takes me all the way to the beginning of, the fire perimeter, my home was fine. And I was very grateful and lucky. And Northern Bay Sands down, it's all fine. just to alleviate some of the pressure. I know they have a list of things to do, but I think to try to get these people back in their homes and give them some timeline. Like over in Conception Bay South, even though the fire was still being attended to, even though they allowed people at a certain point who didn't lose their home to go back, there was no talk of that again this morning to relieve some of the pressure on Carbonear and allow people on the lower North Shore to get back in their homes. Now, the fire yesterday I'm not a fire expert. I'm not going to pretend that I know. Just observation. It looked really good. And, of course, they're trying to deal with hotspots. But the people in the lower North Shore, just to give them some time, because their homes are there and they're not burned and the poles are there and the road is good. So that issue wasn't addressed again this morning. They're painting the whole thing as a disaster. And for people in above Northern Bay, if we could get back in our homes, maybe we could provide some places for someone, our own relatives or friends, they could come and stay with us and give the system a bit of a break, because Carbonear is overloaded. It's over going on 3 weeks now.
I understand. And we're going to need that school. And people will say, well, what about the displaced? I get it, but we do need the children to be able to go back to school. So, look, I haven't been there. I haven't seen it with my own two eyes. I understand the need to have a safety evaluation done before we send people back into a situation which might be more dangerous than than the eye sees. But if it's safe enough and if the structures are habitable, then as soon as possible, people should be back in their homes. I understand that, and I agree with that. I just don't know what the process looks like or the timeline.
I think the question over in Conception Bay North, they were out of their homes. They were evacuated, but the fire was still going. But they did contain it somewhat, but it wasn't like it is today. They got it, say it's under control. They were allowed back in their homes. I mean, I know they might have to there should be some kind of more of a timeline for the lower North Shore of Job's Cove to Northern Bay, their homes are standing, the poles are there, that there should be some talk of that. They're painting the whole thing as like, I don't know, we got a checklist. There's no road damage in Northern Bay from the bridge down to Job's Cove and all the way, of course, down to Old Burlick and Beatty Bird. It's all fine. So, I don't know. That to me seems like a long time.
Yeah, and what a specific timeline looks like, Eugene, I really don't know. It's why I thought we should stick with the press conference, just to see if any specific questions like yours could be addressed, whether it be by Gary Murray or the Premier or John Haggie or whoever. So I'm making a note while we speak. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know why the reporters, and I know they're trying to do a job, but if I was in the audience this morning, some of those questions before, maybe even other news media should ask people what kind of questions you want answered. It seems like they're asking general questions like, how come there's two less? How did you figure that out? That's kind of an irrelevant question to me. Like, this is a bad situation to say why you only have two less in Upper Cove. And I went yesterday, Paddy, to the, I've been posting all my videos and stuff to try to help people in the North Shore. I went up yesterday. I was going to try to go and see if I get the cat and my puffer, because I had cancer 5 years ago and I didn't take my puffer. And yesterday they stopped anyone from going into anywhere, before you could go up as far as Gull Island, Fern Point. Like, why isn't that published? There were people that came all the way from Bay Roberts, St. John's, to see if they could get into their houses. But the PR, the public relations, and publishing information, if you can't get into these communities today, there should be some kind of announcement. If you're from Gull Island, Burn Point, Northern Bay, and you're going there to try to get into your house to get something, you cannot go there because it's all blocked. Like, little things like that are irritating people.
Yeah, it's not my place to tell people working in the industry, reporters, whatever, to ask specific questions, but I'm happy to ask, because these types of timelines are critically important, not only for folks to get back into an area that can indeed be deemed safe and can indeed be deemed safe for Newfoundland Power to do their job. It would take a lot of stress off the folks to get back in their own home, and it would also free up more services for folks who can't return home. So I know where you're coming from. I've made the note. Just let's talk. I talk, you talk. I will ask this question of government officials to see if I can't get a specific timeline for you and others in the same circumstance.
Yes, okay, Paddy. Thank you for taking my call.
I appreciate your time. Stay in touch.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All right, time for the news. When we come back, Adam's here to talk Crown Lands. Bob wants to talk about cigarettes, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line 4. Adam, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how's it going?
Doing okay. How about you?
Not too bad. I heard a call there earlier the week on Tuesday. I believe the man's name was Dustin, calling about some Crown Lands things. And it just prompted me to call in, just try to keep the conversation on the front of everybody's mind, because, he said that he was in, his MHA was Craig Party. So I don't know the man, and I've never had a conversation with him, never met him before, but he must be here somewhere in my area, because it's the same district as I'm in. And everything that he was describing was so familiar to me. I mean, everything that he said was like exactly the same as what I've been dealing with for the last 5 years. Like, just complete radio silence, offer to buy the land, and either get a no or no response. There's just nothing at all. Like, everyone who's responsible for Crown Lands just wants to have nothing to do with these issues, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm almost worn out saying that you might not like the answer, but an answer is better than silence. For the life of me, will never understand how that very simple bureaucratic and/or political calculation is not made.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that I've tried several hundred times in the last 5 years to get just to have a conversation with somebody in Crown Lands who's responsible for these things, and I've probably had 3 conversations that were completely generic and didn't lead to anything. So I'm not sure what they think they're trying to accomplish here. It seems obvious to me that they're trying to accomplish nothing. It's like the ones who are responsible for implementing these policies and legislation surrounding Crown Lands. It seems obvious that they want it to stay the same. They want it to be this way. And, everybody needs to ask themselves the question of why. Why would they want it to be this way? It doesn't seem to be benefiting anybody, including themselves. They're not, it's been referred to as a cash cow many times, but like Dustin said earlier in the week, and like in my circumstance, we've offered to buy it, and they've said no, or they've said nothing. So I don't understand why they've got this mentality where they need to maintain a stranglehold on every last square inch of land that they can in this province. I mean, like I've said it before, I mean, if they take land away from somebody who has rightfully owned it for the last 50 years, they're not going to put that land up for sale or for tender or accept RFQs from a wind energy company on land that somebody is living on. So I don't understand why they're doing it. I don't understand why they won't change the way they're doing it. I don't understand why they've made all these changes in the last fall in the legislature, and then didn't follow through with any of it. They said that they could issue these certificates that would dispossess the Crown ownership of large lots of land in communities in the province. They didn't do any of that. We're almost a year in now. They have not issued one of those certificates. So all of the time that they spent talking about this and debating this and drafting legislation and getting it through the House of Assembly last year was a complete waste of time and taxpayers' money. Everything seems to be exactly the same today as it was a year ago, as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, despite debate over a private member's resolution, despite unanimous support of amendments to Crown land laws, and we've told that it's going to be easier to do this and easier to do that. It's going to reduce the time and money required to acquire Crown land from the government, but it doesn't seem like anything has changed, as you say.
No, nothing at all. I mean, you got people. I know some people who are in this area looking to buy land now. to try to build a home for their family, and they're coming up against the exact same issues, and no path forward. Like, it's not like they tried to buy the land and then this issue comes up and the Crown says, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to get this straightened out. It's just like, no, you can't sell that land, you can't buy that land, end of story, goodbye. And they don't have a path forward to get these issues solved. It's like they're just happy to leave it in the mess that it's in, the mess that it's been in for 75 years. I think it's time. I don't expect to get an open and transparent and honest answer from anybody in that department or in government about what is going on here. But I think it's time for somebody who's responsible for this to come forward in public, maybe on your show, and just tell us what the hell is going on with this, because it's unacceptable. It's gone on for far too long. The things that they are doing are, and this is not an exaggeration, the things that they are doing are ruining people's lives. That man who called in on Tuesday is trying to build a home for his young family, and he can't because of nothing else but Crown land.
That's it. That's his hurdle. And at the exact same time, to add to his frustration, not to derail what we're talking about, stranded in Saskatchewan because of the Air Canada strike. So he was doubly frustrated, and understandably so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how anybody can justify this. I don't know how anybody can sleep at night knowing that the legislation that they're responsible for and the legislation that they are implementing against the residents of this province is causing the issues that it is causing for people and families in this province. I don't know how they can live with themselves. I don't know how anybody can justify their actions and their standpoint on this issue. And I don't know how we can solve it, because, there have been several suggestions come forward, and the most notable ones from the lawyer Greg French in Clarenville about how we need to address this to get it solved. And they don't do anything that is actually creating a tangible difference. Everything that they did last fall in the House of Assembly with the amendments to the Lands Act was superficial. There's nothing that actually helps.
Yeah, and even the suggestions or recommendations coming from people like Greg French, I don't know how any of those might sit badly with a government official. Like, what is it that's being suggested that is not appropriate? Like, when I hear Greg French talk, it all sounds pretty fundamental, pretty straightforward. Not to say that amending legislation is straightforward or fundamental, but the ideas seem very manageable to me, so I'm not sure where the hesitancy is. You and I have talked in the past about this, and every time we do, and every time we hear some suggestions from you or Greg French or whoever else not be implemented, it more and more feels like it's simply going to be considered a revenue source, as opposed to doing what's best for the individual, doing what's best for the resident, because that should be the overarching mandate of government. I get it. Revenue streams are important. I get it that we have to ensure that people are applying for Crown land under all the appropriate approaches taken by families and individuals. But there's ways to curb that kind of potential abuse. And the way we currently handle it feels like it's simply going to be amount of cash that government can bring in come hell or high water. And all of that cash is, of course, paid by taxpayers who already pay their taxes. There's just a lot to this that really frustrates me.
Yeah, I mean, even if it is, at the end of the day, it's just a cash grab, then they're not really, they might be helping their annual budget look a little bit better, but they're not actually helping the province, because all they're doing is recirculating money that's in the province. They're taking it out of my pocket and putting it into the government's pocket to be spent on other things and services that are in this province. They're just reducing the spending power of the residents of this province. So they're not actually causing any benefit by treating it as a cash grab, if that's what they're doing. But the whole thing to me, and I've been saying it for years, the whole thing to me is just morally and ethically broken. Like, I don't get how anybody feels okay with the way that it is. Like I've said before, my hometown of Lake Cove has existed for at least 250 years, and the provincial government has existed for 75 years. So, like, all of the people, all of the families from that community, and any other given community across the province that's in the same boat, those families built that community before there was ever a government here. And now the government comes along, 175 years later, and says, we don't care who owns the land, we don't care who built this community, we don't care who lives here, it's all ours, and then just sit quietly on it for 70 years until it all starts blowing up now. So I don't understand how they can justify the morality of their actions to take away land from the generations of families that lived in and built the communities in this province.
I agree with you 100%, Adam. It's and I'm not even dealing with Crown Lands yet. I find myself frustrated with the Crown Lands conversation. I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
Anything else this morning, Adam?
No, that's it for me today.
Appreciate your time. Take care.
Perfect. Have a good weekend, Patty.
You too, pal. Bye-bye. All right, let's get Bob on too. Bob, you're on the air. Whoa.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing?
Okay, Bob. How about you?
Not bad, my friend. Not bad at all. I just called in just to voice a concern that I've been around St. John's now for the past couple of 3 weeks with all the heat and everything we had. And my heart goes out to everybody that's been affected by the fires overall, first and foremost. If you're smoking, I don't care what you're smoking, put it in a bottle. Don't flick it out the window. I don't care if you're on the highway or around St. John's, anywhere or around any communities. The grass on lawns is like a tinder. Everything around the homes is a tinder. It's ready to go up. And I strongly advise, I know they've allowed the ATVs and that back on the trailways, which I know and I feel for the guys who've been, and people, I should say, not guys, everybody, who's been kept out of the woods and that, but there are rules and regs and things that they need to carry as well. And maybe Rick knows he can add a little bit to it as to what the safety regulations are for those rigs when they're back in on the off-roads. It's just a big concern. I know we're getting into the fall of the year and it's getting a little cooler, but the woods, the ground, still everything is still super dry, and it can go up in a minute.
When I can hear the grass in the park behind my house crunch under the weight of my 10-pound puppy, you know it's pretty crunchy out there. And so,
yeah, it gets very concerned. You walk across the grass now, I mean, like you just said, I mean, it's just the same as walking on a bed of needles.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this does boil back to something that is not really that common anymore, but a bit of common sense. People know the risks that they're taking. So if you're allowed to be back in the woods on your ATV, good, fair enough. You know, so they've removed the restriction, but ATVers know what they're doing. If you've got high grass and hot exhaust, be mindful that you didn't leave a fire behind you. They understand what they're doing out there, you know, and even recommendations to bring along a fire extinguisher or something, it might be the difference between a wildfire starting or not. So I hate overreach and I hate heavy-handed government regulations and restrictions, but sometimes when people are unwilling to evaluate risk and do the right thing, and everyone knows what I'm talking about here, then maybe, just maybe, we can kind of push back government's need to implement some restrictions by everyone just doing what they know is the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, and Patty, years ago, as you know, there used to be ashtrays in vehicles. There is none anymore. If you are smoking, I don't care what it is. Well, I do care what it is, but you know what I'm trying to say, that if you are smoking, have a bottle with a bit of water or something into it, throw it out in the bottle. Don't flick it out the window. I mean, it's just too much at risk.
And look, I mean, even if we were talking about damper conditions, just flicking your butts around willy-nilly is kind of a silly thing to do in the first place. I mean, the same people who flick their butts around will complain about the amount of coffee cups on the ground. So, I mean, you know, it's litter no matter how you slice it. And we all know better. We do. Simple as that. We know what we should or should not be doing with whether it be a coffee cup, a chip bag, a hamburger wrapper, or cigarette butt, or anything else. Add to it the fire risk, and people know better should do better.
Right on, my buddy. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate yours. Thanks for the call.
All right, take care.
You too, Bob. All right, there you go. And look, I'm in no mood to be preachy on anything. And I think in people's quiet moments, they know exactly what they're doing and what it means, because all of our actions have a reaction or a consequence or a result or whatever the right word is. I get pretty brain tired come 11:20 on a Friday. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get some comments about Minister Joanne Thompson's comments on the food fishery and the additional 2 weeks. 2 weekends that we're going to get. And Nicole's in the queue to talk about the disability tax credit, which I mentioned off the top of the show, and then we're going to be speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Barry. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
Patty, calling about the announcement yesterday by Minister Joanne Thompson about the extension to the food fishery, and it is welcome news, I got to say. Some would say, though, why not open it a couple extra weeks? But we'll take what we can get. Hey.
I suppose. I mean, put it this way. An additional 2 weeks is better than no additional 2 weeks, but still it will not quell the fury that you and others think about how the government approaches the recreational food fishery in this province. I get it.
Yes, indeed. And I'll correct you again, Patty. You corrected yourself. It's 2 weekends, not weeks, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Patty, we're also going to be reactivating our lobby effort and getting our petition back on the go again. We took a break over the summer, Patty, for people to enjoy the food fishery, and now we're getting everything back on the go again because we want to make sure that the government are taking it seriously and not letting it just fall through the cracks.
Yeah, and look, there's going to be a consultation apparently this fall. What that actually means, I don't know. Because if you stand back and think about it, for folks who are not commercial harvesters, people want more. Either an increased bag limit and or more days, whatever the case may be. There's probably going to be some talk about logbooks or tags or something in addition to, bag limits and the number of days we're allowed out there. So, yeah. So I'm not surprised that you're going to reinvigorate your efforts, but there is a fall consultation coming. I wonder how they will either hear what's being said or actually listen to what's being said.
Well, that's a good point, Patty. That brings me to my next point, and that is that we are eagerly awaiting the information for the fall consultation town hall meetings. Patty, initially when it was announced way back when, I thought myself that it would be an online consultation survey. But indeed, I'm very pleased to find out that it is town hall meetings in different geographic locations. For regards to that, then, I would strongly suggest each and every person who's involved with the food fishery or has any involvement with it to attend those meetings and have their voices heard and what they think. Because if nobody turns up, then the government's going to probably think that we're not interested in it at all and give us whatever they feel like they think that we want.
Yeah. Online stuff is helpful in reaching the masses, but there's nothing quite like the up-close and personal opportunity to ask questions, because then it's not just reaction and the words that are used in an answer. There's a lot to be read into, even things like body language. I'm not trying to be silly here. That's a thing. You can understand the veracity of a comment coming when you can see someone's face versus simply read it off a piece of paper or read it online.
Indeed so, Patty. There is a big difference. And I was to a consultation meeting on Kenmount Road there several years ago about the food fishery, and it was a lot better in person than it was online, for sure.
Righto. Anything else this morning while we have you, Barry?
Yes, Patty, we are requesting a meeting with the Minister, with Minister Joanne Thompson, to have a sit-down in an informal setting just to have an intro and just talk about what we need to talk about, to get our point across, to make sure that it's not filtered out by the time our message gets to her. Patty, in closing, in my personal opinion, this extension was not even thought of until recently. If Minister Thompson can make a decision to extend the time frame, which is what we are looking for, along with the increased limit so easily, then we have a good case, and we should be able to get our case heard, and we should be able to get our case put through, and we should be able to get our concerns and requests met in a timely fashion. If DFO can allocate an extra 20,000 metric tons to the commercial fishery and allocate over 2,000 tons more to foreign fisheries, and allocate a fishery for the tour boat operators, then surely God, they can allocate a 7-day week daily limit of 10 fish per person and open this food fishery up daily from Canada Day to Thanksgiving Day.
Appreciate the time, Barry. Thanks a lot.
Patty, it's always been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get to the news pretty much on time. Nicole's going to be next to talk about the disability tax credit, which I mentioned off the top of the program. We'll hear from Nicole on her thoughts on that front. Then there's a vet clinic coming up in Conception Bay North this weekend, which will be helpful for those who are displaced or evacuated. And then wait times to see a doctor, apparently. Let's take a break for the newscast. When we come back, still a couple of segments left for you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Nicole, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty. How's it going?
Okay. You?
Good. I want to take a sec just before we start, talk about the wildfires and just say thank you to all the firefighters, and my heart sincerely goes out to everyone who's been impacted by this. This has been completely unprecedented for Newfoundland, and just watching the community support and how hard everyone's working, it's been breathtaking, honestly.
Yeah, it's really something. I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds here, but to see all the level of complaints come from some corners is a little bit much. I mean, to think that everyone's not doing what they can is just hard to understand.
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to every online post, right? You're seeing the negative ones, but I'm also seeing a lot of positive posts as well, and I think that's where we gotta kind of focus, right? It's the strength and resilience of our communities that make us Newfoundlanders, and I think that's kind of the message that we need to be seeing more of.
Fair enough.
Yes. But on that note, I heard that you were talking about the disability tax credit very briefly at the beginning of your segment, so I wanted to call in and just make a couple points about it. Did you have anything specific you wanted to talk about?
Not really. This was all prompted because yesterday there was an error with inputting codes that meant that the federal disability benefit did not flow, so I basically just said, here's how it works for the savings program in this province, at the provincial benefit on the third Thursday of each month, and this all starts with, and you only have access to any of the benefits if you apply for and you're successful in getting the disability tax credit. That's what I basically said this morning.
Exactly. No, yeah, you're exactly right. So I've been doing a lot of work about how to access the disability tax credit. I've done presentations at numerous community organizations, and I've been doing some social media stuff. But there is a couple of things that I kind of do want to raise awareness of. So one of the things is, as you know, we are a province that doesn't have high rates of family doctors. So that's one barrier. If you don't have a family doctor, it can be really challenging to get those forms filled out, and there usually is a fee associated if you're going private. But the kicker, right, it's like one step forward, two steps back, because even if you do have a family doctor, MCP doesn't bill for doctors filling out forms. So what that means is you could still get charged from your family doctor, and I've seen this be up to $260.
Yeah. Now, it's also worth pointing out, and I know you know this, but if you're listening and you think, well, I don't have a family doctor, so I'm not going to bother, it depends on the issue that you might see you qualify. So for a medical doctor, they can review and certify all impairments. Nurse practitioners, all impairments. But if your issue is with vision or hearing or walking or mental functions or speaking, then professionals in those arenas are also qualified to help you. An optometrist, if you're talking about vision, an audiologist, if you're talking about hearing, an occupational therapist, if it's things like feeding yourself or getting dressed or walking, physiotherapist, psychologist, speech language pathologist. So just because you might not have a family doctor, don't automatically rule yourself out from pursuing this.
No, exactly. And I'd say to anyone who's really stuck, call 811 and get their opinion, see if they can point you in the right direction.
Sure.
Like I said, it's not perfect, but there are different things available. And like I said, it's hard to watch because, say, if you can't get past the first paywall, if you're being told you have to pay to get these forms filled out, you can't access the other benefits. So for people who are living in poverty, who can't afford this first step, that means they're automatically not going to be connected to additional financial supports that they should be entitled to. And with this, with 53% of people experiencing homelessness also have a disability. So there's a couple different sides of this as well that I do worry that the people who need this most aren't able to access it.
I'll add to the point, and the point made that I just received a text on. If you have to pay a fee for this purpose, you can also claim it against your taxes. So you're going to have to pay up front, but you will recoup.
Yes. And if you do have the option, the ability to pay it up front, that is an option for people. But then sometimes people on income support or other programs or CPP disability, they might not have access to that fast funding. If there was a way that there was a program put in place where maybe income support or another institution could step in to kind of cover it and then get it back on the tail end, I think that would make it a lot more accessible for people who really need it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting contrast, isn't it? We're talking about people who may be eligible for a disability tax credit, and at the exact same time, making it difficult for accessibility. It's pretty counterintuitive.
Well, yeah, and that's actually why I was doing presentations at the community level, because I did notice that the province was doing some up by the airport, but then I was kind of thinking that if you're, it's always nerve-wracking going to a new place, especially if you have mobility issues or other types of impairments, that if we can bring the presentation to where people feel safe and where they have supports, it would be more accessible to them. So that's what I've been doing for the past couple of months. And I got to say, like, the community response to that has been really good.
And that's a good thing. Anything else you'd like to add this morning while we have you?
No, that's it. I just heard you talking about it this morning. I was like, I must give Patty a call.
Always happy to talk about these kinds of things for sure, because I bet you a lot of people who listen to the program and maybe sporadically listen, maybe hear about this and think, wow, maybe I am eligible. And the next thing you know, they are eligible. So this is helpful stuff, hopefully, to people listening to the program.
Exactly. And I've talked to people who I've helped connect with this, and they've told me after the fact that this has changed their lives. Like, they're lying in bed and they're not worried about buying medications, or they're not worried about paying that power bill. So getting this tax credit and the other benefits, it can be life-changing for people. And okay, I will end on that note.
Appreciate your time, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's see here. Get a couple of information-loaded calls here. Line number 5. Heather, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
Great today. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. So I'm calling in today because we're going to be doing a vet clinic, a free vet clinic, I should say, out hopefully in the Carbonear School on Sunday. For the residents that are displaced with their animals, and, you know, if they're concerned and they think their animal needs to be checked out by a vet. We'd like them to come by on Sunday. I don't have all the details yet. We're having a meeting later today. So people can check out our Facebook page, Rescue NL on Facebook, and we'll have the details there with the time and all that stuff. But most likely we'll be at the school where people are.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
When you get the space secured, let us know, whether it be social media or otherwise, and we'll try to spread it far and wide.
Yeah, and like I said, that's why I wanted just to call in to make people aware that it will be happening on Sunday, because that's the best time, I think, because the government agencies aren't in the building and stuff, and we want to do it now because, well, of course, school's coming up, and who knows, people might be moving and stuff, and you know, I think we've had a lot of people reach out that are concerned and need vet care and stuff for their animals. So we want to offer that for them, right? Because with everything else going on, I feel like it's the least we can do to help out, you know?
Absolutely, and good on you for doing it. Anything else before I take another call here this morning, Heather?
Nope, just wanted to get that out there, that's all.
I'm glad you did. And keep us in the loop with the location.
Absolutely, we will do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too,
Bye.
Heather. Bye-bye. I'm sure people will take advantage of it or avail of it. Let's go to line number 2. Trevor, you're on the air.
How are you this morning, Patty? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. I'm best kind. How about you?
On number one, Patty. Good man. Patty, before we get into the guts of the call here, I want to take a moment, as many of the callers have done, just to say a very special thank you to all the men and women who are out fighting these blazes and behind the scenes, and also let the people know who are deeply affected by all this that our thoughts are with them all, and hoping to get this sorted away fairly quickly for all those people.
Fair ball.
To change gears here a little bit, the reason I'm calling, Patty, is because we're bringing back the Labour Day Fest up at the edge of the Avalon in Trepassey this year. It got sidelined with the COVID pandemic, and the decision was made this year that we're going to bring it back. It's going to be an awesome, fun-filled weekend for family and friends to come up. We're going to have a lot of music. We're going to have, starting off on Saturday evening with Trepassey's own Judy Brazel. Then we have Mr. Sean Sullivan and a couple of lads from Fogo Island with the Ramblers. And we're going to follow that up with the awesome Shani Gannock and an up-and-coming band called Uncle Jack. If anybody's interested, it's quite a party, as everybody knows. Nobody knows how to party like the crowd on the Irish Loop, particularly Trepassey, but I'm biased. So, anybody feels that they want to get away from it all for a weekend, we gladly love to have them up and celebrate this fest with us again. Hoping they bring it back full time, but we'll see how it goes. If anybody does want tickets, they can call 709-438-2934 or visit the edgeoftheavaloninn.com. There's campsites available, and anybody who would need accommodations are at the inn as well. And just to touch on something that the Premier said earlier with the Red Cross thing, the Edges and the people at the Edge are going to donate $500 to kickstart things. So we're already up to $1,000 now with the government matching it. So let's get everybody out there around the province and stuff just to, keep going, and let's help out in any way we can. And aside to that, Paddy, too, as the Edge Avalon Inn wants to say a thank you to the hard-working volunteers and stuff. So they're going to offer up a night at the Edge for any of these amazing people. If they want to get a night away with their pets, they can just reach out to the Edge of the Avalon Inn in Trevassie, and they will look after them. Sunday, then, we do have some live entertainment on the deck, I believe it is, with Katie Barber and the Relics as well. So all in all, it's looking to be a fine weekend of entertainment and getting together. And let's hope we can see a lot of people up there, like just to get away from all the, the hassle and the scariness of the wildfires and stuff the last few weeks. I think it'd be a great idea to just come up and relax, have a few cold ones, and listen to enjoyable music.
Hear, hear. And I can attest to the fact that the crowd on the loop know how to party.
Indeed we do.
Good on you. Good luck with it, Trevor. Thank you.
All right, Paddy, thanks. Have a good day.
Pleasure. Same to you. Bye-bye. All right, let's take our final break of the morning and the week. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the Liberal candidate running the upcoming election, whenever that's going to be, in Mount Pearl Southlands. That's Sarah Furlong. Hi, Sarah. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Thanks for taking my call today.
No problem.
So like a lot of Newfoundlanders here and the Labradorians, I've been hearing from family, neighbors, and even seniors at the grocery stores that they're struggling to get basic health care needs met. We've had some folks who haven't had a replacement doctor, and even the collaborative care models, young families who don't have family physicians for their children. So I really think it's time that we take a look at our priorities here, and I think there is something to be said about shifting focus to an evidence-based care model that would integrate non-clinical personnel into patient care teams.
Isn't that what we're kind of doing with the new ambulatory hub?
Yes, but I think that there's more to be done, honestly. So, Patty, I actually went to Harvard for a certification, and part of it was mental health, innovative, and strategy. And one thing that they always said was that non-clinical personnel into patient care teams is a key factor to strategizing for the most opportunity. So if we look at community health care workers or even traditional healers, there's opportunity to use, as long as, of course, it's evidence-based, there's opportunity to use people and give other people the opportunity for the training to give them a little bit more responsibility.
Paint us a picture of a relatively specific example of how this works.
Sure. Okay, so just say if there was we're not talking about diagnosis by any means. So just say if I call the pharmacy, the pharmacist can deliver me an extra bit of prescription for a couple of weeks, okay? So that's great. But at the end of the day, I would still have to call my doctor's office, or they would fax over for an updated prescription. Now, sometimes we still wait more than 2 weeks to try to get that prescription. So maybe providing the pharmacist or even the pharmacy tech with some more opportunities to be able to extend those types of things, that would help. So that's just a really small piece. We definitely use it in mental health for peer support. I think there is opportunity outside of some of the peer support trainings that why not take it the extra step? A lot of times people just want someone to speak with, and if it's something that we can deliver and help, and even being check-ins or community go-tos, or someone to pick up the phone and call and say, how are you making out today? Last night on the phones, I was actually bumped into a few different seniors, and, they all have something significant going on their life, and for me, it opened my eyes to the need for even a really preventative check-in, even to pick up a phone call and say, how are you doing? What can we do for you?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, to use a cliche, every little bit helps. It's similar to the mindset that some have is the only way I'm going to be seen or satisfied today is if I see a white coat MD with their license on the wall. When in fact, there's a lot of contributing factors that can make your experience through the healthcare system easier, more timely, including what you're talking about this morning.
Well, I think it's also a team approach, Patty.
Sure.
So, I mean, if we have, the peer workers, and then we also have, a licensed practitioner, nurse practitioner, and I think it's so on, like, you don't always have to immediately speak with the MD, and I think that, yes, it's an integrated model, and but I also feel that there's definitely more opportunities to give some of these healthcare workers a little bit more responsibility, of course, with more, we don't want anyone to do anything more without reduced pay. Of course, that's something that I'm a fair believer in, that everyone gets what they deserve. But I think that there's opportunity here even for schooling or for young people who have young families. Maybe they want to be a nurse practitioner, but the incentive is not there because they cannot afford to leave their positions or to work, do some courses overtime, whether that be finances or whether that be childcare. I mean, we need to sit down and talk to the people to find out what is it that we can help with to get you to do what you want to do as well. That's certainly a piece of it.
Absolutely. Sarah, I'm going to sneak on one more call, but I appreciate your time and wish you good luck out there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Have a great day, Patty.
You too, Sarah. Bye-bye. Last word this morning goes to line number 6. Good morning, Ron. You're on the air.
Yes, Patty, I know we're getting close to the end there. Mary Brown Centre, did you know they were going cashless down there for the regiment now? Or everything, I guess.
Yeah, I heard rumblings. I didn't know that was actually a thing that's been announced, but you're telling me it is, I guess. Okay.
Yes, I looked at it on the Mary Brown's website, and my buddy sent me a thing as well. It's all reliable source. And it looks like parking is more like a public service announcement now for people that might be going. It's parking, all the concessions, maybe the vending, I thought you said the vending machines, maybe, but like say, basically, if you go to Mary Brown Centre, not only for the hockey, but I guess for anything, it's debit, credit, Apple Pay, whatever like that. And I don't know about the 50-50 yet. I'm going to check with the box office now when they open at 12. And the parking at the parking garage. So, I'm just picturing, like, I talked to a few of my buddies about it, and they said, like, sometimes the machine, like, everything goes down, right? You had callers this morning, like you said yourself, in your house, you try to text from here, text from there, right? So, if the systems go down, like it's set, what happens sometimes, it's going to be a bit crazy. And I understand the efficiency of not having people counting the cash and speeding up and efficiency and all that stuff. And in the article, it says, they're following suit a little bit with some of the major places like on the mainland and stuff like that. But, just because the mainland does it, But I see the efficiency part for the organization, because I know coming out the gate here with the boys here, this is very professionally ran what they're doing here with the regiment. I got my ticket secured for the first game and that. And, but just a heads up, like when you want to send your kids down for a bag of popcorn or go buy your 50-50, you're not taking money.
Yeah, for plenty of people, I can't speak for the operations at Mary Brown Centre, but when you have so many different outlets selling pizza and hot dogs and popcorn and water and ice cream and 50-50 and whatnot, that I'm going to guess there's maybe, 50 different floats of cash in operation?
Exactly.
So that becomes an issue as well, I would imagine. But Ron, we're actually due for an update from the leadership at St. John Sports and Entertainment. I can add this to the list. You've had the last word. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ron. Bye-bye. Whew, all right, good show today. Good shows all week. Big thanks to all hands. And yes, we will indeed pick up this conversation again on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Bye-bye.